What's up, everybody? It's Raw Moon from Compost Universe. We got another episode of The Verse. Today with me, I have the band Valefor. Introduce yourself, guys.
I'm Cole Fowler. I play the guitar and I do vocals.
I'm Sean Dillahan. I play the bass and I do the screaming.
I'm Cody Phillips. I play drums and do some backup vocals.
Very cool. So all three of you do vocals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice. What does Valefor mean? How did that name come about? What's that all about?
I don't think anybody really knows what Valefor means, but we were just in high school and we were trying to think of a scary demon name, and I was looking at names of demons, and there's this demon named Valefor, so now that's the name of our band.
It's better than anything I came up with, so
He's like
he rolled with it.
He's a Duke of Hell, and he runs, I think, 12 legions in Hell.
What's that from?
That's what Google told me.
It's
So Google.
from, I believe, the Book of Solomon.
Very cool. So how long have you guys been a band for?
Since, I think, 2016, but, we weren't really doing much around then, just kind of jamming.
Well, me and him started playing together like 2014,
Yeah.
and then we spawned this musical relationship, and still going on today.
And then
Very
in
cool.
I'd say
2022, I joined.
that's when stuff really started picking up. We started putting out music, doing shows. Is when you joined. I'd say.
Very cool, very cool. So I've seen you guys live a few times, and one thing I like about your music is that I hear a few different kinds of sounds going on. What type of band do you consider yourselves?
Well, I'd say we're a rock and roll band personally, but
Right.
they probably would disagree with me.
Yeah, I say we're a metal band that like goes into different subgenres of metal. Kind of. It's not really experimental because we're just like doing it. We're not like trying this or that. We're just like, this is what we want to do. And
You're like writing to the song.
Yeah, basically.
So what are some of the inspirations? What bands you guys listen to?
I'm big into like my favorite metal band is Gojira. I love that. And these guys put me on a Mastodon, which is like second up there with favorite bands. And I try to use like, my own styling with influences from their drummers.
Very
Stuff
cool.
like that. They're completely talented, and I like using some of that influence.
How about you?
Well, I take inspiration from all sorts of stuff. Lately I haven't really been listening to a lot of metal. I'm like super into Bob Dylan and like King Crimson, Robert Fripp stuff, and
A little more progressive.
yeah, and so I mean I also love Steely Dan and stuff like that. So all that somehow seeps into the music, whether it's conscious or not.
Right.
It depends. I think like what you said before, like we're playing to the song. Like maybe an idea that one of these guys comes up with or I come up with, and I don't ever try to force anything.
I think that's important. When you have a riff, you have an idea, you want to do what the song calls for.
Mhm.
Where a lot of people tell me that songs I write are too long, but it calls for it. There's a lot of parts going on. It takes you on a journey. So I like that. I like that you guys kind of you don't really put yourself in a box of being like hardcore or like metalcore or whatever the fuck people call it.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't even listen to no hardcore, but I would say that we kind of, I guess, are kind of hardcore. Like we have some hardcore stuff.
I hear stuff in the songs you guys sent me that has like the grooves of that, like not quite breakdowns, but like that I was bringing up before we got on camera that I like in a few of the newer songs you sent me. I had the privilege of listening to some of this stuff before it comes out. I notice you'll have like a groove going, and then you on the drums you'll like halftime that, like you, and when you do it, it's almost like the guitars they get like, I don't know about lower, but like heavier. Like there's just like that drop in emotion. I think to me that's very hardcore.
Yeah. I mean, me and Cody definitely listen to a lot of the newer kind of metal and hardcore stuff, like Knocked Loose and Bane.
Very cool.
We try not to make that like limiting to what a song could be.
Yeah.
Like we'll have some heavier parts and stuff like that, but then blend it with stuff from stuff Cole would listen to or stuff Cody would listen to, and let the song become more than just a hardcore song or like a metal song,
It's like
and just let it be a song.
based on the feel of it, because like when I write a part, it's to fit the song, but to also like not associate it with like a band that I listen to. Like obviously if some of our parts remind me of some of the bands that I look up to, but it's not like we're intentionally doing so.
Sure.
Yeah. And like my writing process for the drums is like what fits. I'll get the bare bones down if we're like working on like an idea, and then I'll see how can I challenge myself in my brain to see how this fits and not do too much, but like throw in what I feel is like necessary, and
Absolutely.
give it distinction.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of our songs, they like branch across a lot of different subgenres of rock and metal, but at the end of the day, they all kind of have, a solid groove to them, and they kind of have something in the songwriting that makes you think, and it's not like a, regular standard structure you would expect in a song.
Very cool. Very cool.
I feel like that's kind of the one thing that ties everything together with what we do.
Great.
I like the fact that a lot of our songs sound different from each other, because you could go see a band and they'll be playing the same song for 30 minutes or 45, and then it's like, okay,
Got it the first time.
yeah. No offense to those bands. Like, obviously do your thing, but don't be afraid to reach other waters.
Yeah,
with
step
these.
outside that,
Yeah.
Sometimes you surprise yourself,
I think it's how you grow as an artist. You want to try different things. You
Yeah,
wanna-
Exactly. No, I can't just listen to the same thing over and over again. Like, I'll go on like bouts of like, I'm only listening to this band or I'm doing a deep dive on this band, but most of my likes go from like slow acoustic country music to like Knock Loose to fucking King Gizzard. That's my favorite band. But like in like them, they're coming out with their 27th studio album, and rarely any two albums or any more than two albums will have the exact same genre. They just do whatever they feel like doing. They go like, oh, we're doing this genre, they're doing this genre and that genre.
They have like
that.
whole albums of like, all right, this album's like a thrash metal album.
Yeah, they have a
this one's gonna be
thrash,
like
they have a
that.
prog metal, they
Yeah.
have like a blues album, they have like lo-fi, they have acoustic. It's like they aren't afraid, and they kill it every time. They're not afraid to like change their sound.
Yeah, I think that's becoming a lot more common nowadays. Like a lot of like rappers post like 2015 almost sound like emo or punk artists.
Yeah.
Or like they have like scream like I listened to XXXTentacion.
Oh, yeah.
He like was like screaming like it was like a Slipknot song.
Yeah.
The songs. And on the same album it will be like an old school like rap song. It's
Exactly.
it's
Same with Mac Miller, because like
Yeah.
a lot of his albums they stick to a same vibe, but like a different vibe from the last album or the next album.
And I think right now there are just so more artists are putting out music than ever before because anyone can just do it.
Yeah.
I think there's at least 1 in 5 people are making music, or 1 in 10, because there's so many bands out there,
And also just anybody, like I go down in the basement and record something like almost every day.
Yeah.
And anybody can just do it. There's no gatekeepers anymore.
Yeah,
Exactly.
You have a
back in the-
computer. You have
Back in the
mixers.
70s, you had to go to a studio or something and pay all this money, and now you can sit in your basement.
Right, and if they didn't like what you were doing, you weren't getting music out.
Yeah.
Now there's nobody stopping you. So there's so much music out there. So I think what's happening is people are really trying to do what they can to stand out.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's at the underground level like we are, or at the like Mac Miller at the
Which
mainstream
makes it
level.
hard. Like, obviously, we don't want to be a pop mainstream, because like I kind of despise that, because everyone's listening to the same garbage with like
Yeah.
2 billion fucking listens. Like, power to those artists, but at some point, you're just soulless.
I
You know,
agree.
But as much as I'd love to, like, I wouldn't say be a household name, but like doing tours and festivals and stuff like that where we're playing crowds like 10, 20,000 people, MSG would be sick. I'm not gonna say I'm not reaching for the sky, but we're definitely not there. Yeah.
The sky's definitely the limit,
Yeah.
you know. But I think, to me, it's always been important that what I'm doing with my own music or with a band is we're doing it for the sake of writing good music. You know, when you try to start appealing to people, I think that you lose something.
I think that's an important thing, you know, like I don't write this music for anybody like but myself.
Yeah.
Right.
But then when somebody does come up and say, "Hey, man, like, you know, the music that I made touches them in some kind of way, the same way that the stuff that I listen to touches me," like, it's unbelievable, you know.
It's a great
That's what it's
feeling.
about.
That's well, I wouldn't say that's what it's about, but when it does happen, it's like, wow, you know, it's unbelievable.
So it sounds to me like one thing you guys take pride in is being really authentic about how you're putting this music out. Is there a song that you think you guys really honed in on that? Like which one would you highlight as far as that?
Um, I think like cognitive distortion's a good one. You know, I think I came up with this riff, and you know, I think it's you know we all allowed each other space to have our parts, and you know, and I think what's great about Valefor is that you know something like you know I can what might be my idea for a song like isn't what they're thinking, and when they do have these ideas, it's you know it's that's what it's a collaborative. You know, it's not just me writing all this stuff, and as for the lyrics and stuff go, um, I don't know. I honestly really don't write with intention with my lyrics. I never sit down and I'm like, this is what I'm gonna do.
So how do you come up with it?
I think it's kind of just like flow of consciousness, and
Okay.
you know, I think. I mean, obviously, maybe it does have some kind of meaning. You know, Cody had said it had a meaning to him, and but I think it's all or it's kind of like subjective. You know, someone can what means something to them, you know, and if that's what's important and that's what's meaningful to you, then yeah. But you know, if I were to say this is exactly what it is, you know, maybe it takes away from what other people think of it, you know.
Um, I hear that. What is it? What does it mean to you guys?
That song to me is an outlet to let out my hatred and anger. Honestly, as much as I get pure joy out of playing drums, but I also channel a lot of resentment in my life to let out during that song. And it's just me getting out of my head and beating the shit out of drums. Are we allowed to curse?
Yeah.
You already did it like 4 times. But you know, I think that's the beautiful thing is that whatever it means to him, who am I to say yes or no to that? You know, I think
Cool.
that's what's beautiful. You know.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for Cole too, but a lot of the lyrics that I write, I know are kind of reflections of how I look at things or about personal struggles, and I feel like we really try not to force writing lyrics for things, and kind of the more naturally they come, the more meaning they're gonna have at the end of the day. And it's the same with writing songs where, we'll present a riff for one person, we'll have a beat for a part of a song, and we'll just kind of bounce off each other and, you know, come up with something piece by piece. And that's the stuff that we're usually the most proud of.
I will say, like, although there might not be intention initially when the stuff's being written, sometimes looking back on it, it's that you can see it a lot clearer, you know?
I find that with myself as a musician too. Like a lot of times you just write what sounds cool, but then coming back, you kind of what I find is how things are connected. Um, when I go back and I look at something I made 10 years ago or 5 years ago, and I'm like, you know that one really makes sense to me now, like with what I'm thinking about now or what I'm dealing with now. Do you guys find that happening? Like you didn't have a total intention. You kind of wrote it organically and let it flow, but later on you see things that really come out in that.
Yeah, I think sometimes you need that time to be away from it to, you know, come back with a new perspective, and when you do see it, you know, sometimes it's so obvious you didn't even, you know, you didn't even notice it.
Can you give me an example of that with one of your songs? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Thinking with one of my because I've made music on like my laptop and stuff, and I can't remember the name of the song that I wrote, but the lyrics are basically like an abstract way of trying to. It's like an abstract way of describing escaping reality.
Very cool.
That's one example I got, but I don't really write too many lyrics. Most of my stuff's instrumental.
I think some of the earlier material we did that was put on our self-produced album, a lot of those songs me and him wrote when we were like 16. So that's almost 10 years ago now. And it's, looking back on it now, it's sometimes I look at the lyrics or, and it's, I didn't know what I was writing. But like, I can see now, like, man, like I can, like, it takes me back to that moment in time.
So what we're gathering here is the music you talked about some songs you created almost 10 years ago. And what the verse tries to dig into is really the lore behind the music. It seems to me like the lore that exists in Valefor is kind of your guys' emotions, like what you were expressing in the moment, and how that's aged till now. And that's really cool. It's a real like authentic expression. I'd say I've never heard Valefor before, and you have a show coming up, and I'm gonna come. What do you think I'm gonna get out of that show?
I'd say that, depending on the night, hopefully there would be a lot of people bringing a lot of energy to the show. And, you know, people from all walks of life just getting together to mosh around, run into each other. It's generally some nice crowds.
Very cool.
And we play with a lot of heavier bands usually, but definitely on a lot of mixed bills. It's some fun times to be had.
I like bringing out, emotion in people and giving people an outlet for them to not necessarily do whatever, but behave yourself, but like let it out, let out what you need to get out during our 30 to 45 minutes to an hour, hopefully.
I think that I can't choose what it elicits in somebody, and it's
Right.
it's what they're willing to be vulnerable with, and I think when because it's very vulnerable being on stage and performing like that, so when I see the crowd, reacting in a certain way, people come up to me and say something like they don't have to do that, but the fact that it did touch them in some way, it's beautiful. I think it's whatever you want from it. I think any kind of music, there's some kind of value to it, and it's whatever you open yourself up to.
Very
I
cool.
know you were saying like a lot of the songs are kind of personal reflections, and I was just thinking a good example of that is one of our newer songs, Regress. I actually wrote a lot of the lyrics during a hiatus of the band, and a lot of the lyrics kind of reflect being uncertain or just unsure of the future and the fear that brings, and then, self doubt and questioning if the work you're putting in is worth it at the end of the day. And, sometimes you don't know if it is going to be worth it, and you just have to put your head down until, you know, things aren't always going to be the best, and that's kind of part of being in a band, is seeing things through to the end. And yeah, I think it's important having those lyrics be as transparent as they are.
And it's funny you say that they're transparent because that's not what I would have picked up from the song when I first heard it. I
That's
didn't.
another cool thing about it, is that I've had people talk to me about that song and others, and hearing their own interpretations of what the lyrics mean to them is interesting, and comparing it to what they mean to me. Yeah.
So these new songs, uh, you show me Regress, you show me what's Cognitive Distortion,
Mm-hmm.
and I also listened to Tipping Point. Are these part of an album you're working on, an EP?
It's part of a 5-song EP.
And when's that dropping, do you think?
Sometime this summer,
Yeah.
if things go according to plan.
So sometime this summer we have a Valefor EP dropping, 5 new songs. You definitely want to stay tuned for that.
Keep those eyes peeled.
Yeah, we actually just finished up a day in the studio with Anthony Lapardo and Ray Marte.
In Westfall Studios in Farmington.
Very cool.
But yeah, I'd say 99% done.
Awesome.
Should be out soon.
Oh yeah.
So we just you have some new music coming out. How about shows? You got some shows coming up you want to hype up here?
Yes. On Saturday we're driving up to Philadelphia. We're gonna be playing this place called The Fire. I know the band is Youth Death Club.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Cool.
Playing with
Philadelphia.
Crosside and Crumb Creek.
Yes. And then Monday we're going up to Purchase College. We're playing with Desolate Sun and a bunch of other acts that I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I just haven't looked too deep into it. But
Desolate Sun, Max Millie, Pinky Poodles. I'm not sure who else.
yeah. But my boy Max and Joey go to Purchase and they wanted to put us on a bill.
April 21st.
It's gonna be pretty sick. Easter Monday.
That's awesome. Is that your first time in Pennsylvania?
It is.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Fucking awesome. So now
I've only heard it in mythology, Pennsylvania.
yeah, it doesn't actually exist in the real world.
Yeah.
So here's a doozy. This one was Joel's idea. If you could address all the fans, listeners you're gonna have to your music right now, what would you say?
I don't know. I guess just thank you for listening.
I was gonna say thanks for listening. You don't gotta listen, but you did.
That's
Thank
a good
you.
way to go. I like that.
Love each other, be safe, have fun.
Guys, thanks for coming out.
Hey, thanks for
Appreciate
having us.
having you.
Absolutely.
Listen to Valefor. You got your Spotify, right?
Spotify, Apple Music, the whole shebang, baby.
Bandcamp,
All of it.
all of it.
Anything and
Awesome.
everything.
Very cool. And keep tuning into the verse. Subscribe to Moon Grove Records. Subscribe to Compost Universe. We will be back again soon. Thanks for sticking around. We have we're gonna leave you with a live snippet of Valefor's live performance from our very own Shaker's Pub. And what song are you guys playing?
It is Set My Soul Aside.
Shout out Pickle Pete for
Shout
busting a
out
move in the
Pickle
vid.
Shout
Sweet.
out Pickle Pete.
Shout out
Thanks,
Joe
guys.
for recording the whole thing.
I'd say he was going ham, but he was pretty much going pickle.
Call him Pickle. All right.